The 10-minute drill.
This is a big one.
Is brought to you by All Pro Roofing. AllProRoofingLLC.com on 1010XL.
Let's go, let's go, let's go.
Hit it. All right, back here on the drill. It's time for the 10-minute drill.
Yeah!
I get a kick out of the text line sometimes. It's cracked me up. Whether you try to be funny or not. Sometimes when you try to be funny, I don't laugh at all. When you're not trying to be funny, I do a spit take. I mean, your motivation so obvious. Like, I like this one. We're talking about the Braves and whether they should play the Dodgers or the Giants, which is a pretty viable storyline, right? If could definitely impact the NLCS. And I got a brainiac on the text line. It doesn't matter. Braves will lose to either. Deep insight, friend. Thank you. I mean, it's that kind of thought-provoking insight that really, it adds to the show. It adds to the flavor of the show when you can bring a take like that. It allows the mind to expand and say, wow, I never thought of that. So
always good to hear from Eeyore.
Yeah, Eeyore. Keep up the insight there.
It doesn't matter. We're going to lose.
Right.
Either team.
Correct. Yeah, I don't think that's
might as well forfeit.
Yeah, I don't think that's a Braves fan. I think that's just some JA trying to uncreatively prod, I guess. I don't know, but it made me chuckle. They're going to lose to you. Way to break it down, man. That's nice. What a breakdown. All right, let's get to some of the other headlines.
Let's get to it. I mean, look, it, top of the mind, like you said, I mean, it affects your Braves. We've got one baseball game tonight, a decisive Game 5 in the NLDS, Giants and Dodgers. Like you said, just a bitter, real hatred-type rivalry, at least between the fan bases for sure. So how do you feel about it going in tonight? Who do you think is going to win between L.A. and San Francisco?
I think it's probably a mistake not to pick the Giants. I mean, all year long, you've waited on the Giants to, if not fold, at least recede. They jumped ahead of the Dodgers. The Dodgers went on an unbelievable pace in the second half, and the Giants have all year long done just enough to stay in front, including a series late in the year that came down to the last game of that series that the Giants needed to win to keep their lead in the National League West, to win the season series 11-10, I think, 10-9. At every crack this year where the Giants have seemed to be in danger, they have answered every single time. So, they'll send a guy out that when you think about the best pitchers in Major League Baseball, you never come up with this guy's name. Odds are many of you, even casual baseball fans, don't even know who this is. But Logan Webb pitched very well for the Giants the other night. He's a really good young pitcher, just 24 years old. He was 11-3 this year. He's kind of emerged as the ace of that Giants staff. He's working on complete rest. Meanwhile, he faces Urias, who's he got banged around by the Giants the first time he faced them this year, and he's pretty much shut him down since. I expect a good, tight, intense, low-scoring game. The Giants have taken every punch, and they've walked out of the ring at every stage this year. I would expect them to do the same tonight. I think the Giants will beat the Dodgers tonight. And in a world where the Atlanta Braves were out of the postseason, that would be a big cause for celebration for me. I hate the Dodgers. But in this case, I think I'd really, as a Braves fan, rather see the Dodgers come to Atlanta with the Braves having home field advantage rather than the Braves have to go to San Francisco, not once, but probably twice in a long series.
The fallout and analysis continues in the wake of the John Gruden email.
Okay.
Kerfluffle. The new Raiders interim head coach, Rich Bisaccia, spoke yesterday, and he called it a bump in the road, not the end of the road for the Vegas Raiders, who stand at 3-2. They started 3-0. They've lost 2 straight, but they're still in the mix in that AFC West. So do you agree with him that is not the end of the road, or is this too much to overcome?
I guess it depends on how far you're taking the road. I mean, it's not a bump in the road for this week's game. It could be much more than a bump of the road for a season, I guess, depending on how it goes. But in fairness, this has no, I guess, part of that quote could be interpreted as, this is no fault of the Raiders. This is a bump in our road that someone that was associated with us did. Ain't nobody here in this locker room done anything like that. The hope would be in a normal situation that you got a pair of former head coaches around you that can help. But the problem is those head coaches, Marinelli and Bradley, are among the 2 worst head coaches to ever coach in the National Football League. And I don't mean that by like personal opinion. I mean, let me get this. I'm going to look this up. I might have stumbled on like 2 and 3 in all time. You may be talking about 2 of the worst winning percentages by head coaches in NFL history.
Certainly, results, whether the percentages match up, just from what we know you saw from those guys, not good.
He's solid.
No, you're not, Gus.
I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to just I can only imagine Gus Bradley's winning percentage had to be about 200, didn't it? Let's see what we got here, gang. Gus Bradley, out of 191 coaches in NFL history, his winning percentage of 226 is 188th all time. So, point being, for level-headed, steady leadership into success, it would seem that wouldn't be the assistant captain that you would hand the helm to. We love Gus, right? Nice man. That's fine. Terrible football coach. You can't refute that. My man had a record of 14 and 48. He had a winning percentage of 226. Only Steve Spagnuolo, Hugh Jackson, and Burt Bell have worse winning percentages all time. So that is one of your options. Your other is Marinelli, and
who was also a mess as the head coach.
I'm not finding. He must not have coached enough games to get here. But I'll just look up Rod Marinelli, and I'm going to tell you that he probably had a winning percentage.
Rod Marinelli was 10 and 38 as a regular season head coach. That's a 208 win percentage.
So there you go, man.
Not good.
No, not good at all. 208. So point being, now that doesn't mean that they don't know how to efficiently run. 208, huh?
208.
Wow. Golly, that's lower than Gus's number. Yeah, so those are your 2. Point being, they've got head coaches there to help ease it, but it's not like they've got head coaches that are...
Marinelli went 3 and 13, 7 and 9, and then a bagel.
An ofer. So, yeah, when I say then that, you have head coaches, it's relative. Though you don't have head coaches that have... Yeah, he didn't coach enough, or guess what? He'd be below Gus.
Yeah.
Marinelli would be 190th all time.
Oh, no.
There are 191 coaches. There would be 192 if he made the list. Out of 192 coaches, Gus Bradley is 188, and Rod Marinelli is 190. That's where they are on the all-time winning percentage for NFL.
They looked at Rich and said, "You can't be worse, pal. Good luck."
Why don't we give it to the special teams coach?
Good luck, Rich.
But as to the bump in the road, that's on the players. The Raiders have pretty good players. The system is going to change. They haven't changed the rules of the game. Yeah, it's going to be some lingering emotion, but it's a long year. They are 3-2. They're not 1-4. So I'll buy that it could be a bump in the road.
Jeff, the Florida Gator football team got a 4-star recruit yesterday. Of course, it's just brings back up the ongoing conversation about Dan Mullen and his recruiting in general.
Yeah, and that's probably my conversation that I seem to walk around having with myself. So I don't mean to put it that way. This is a good get for Florida. The kid's name is Jaden Gibson, and he's a 4-star now. But this is a guy who's being recruited by Georgia and Alabama and those sorts. You're winning recruiting battles with them, not Southern Miss, Tennessee, and Texas. Not that everyone courting this guy were the big boys. And he's a big receiver. He fits in good with what has been an overall good receiver recruiting class so far, as far as the commitments go. So it moved Florida up one entire spot in the overall recruiting rankings. They are currently, depending on where you look, about 12th or 14th.
Yeah, 247 has them 14, up from 16.
Okay, so up a couple spots in 247.
This young man, Jaden Gibson, 34th ranked wide receiver nationally.
And there is some talk. We've seen this in the past. Sometimes the stars get reshuffled, and 4 stars become 5 or 3, or 5 becomes 4, depending on how they do their senior year. These are still going on rankings from what we had seen thus far through their first 3 years of high school in many cases. And there is some thought that Gibson is a kid that might jump up, be higher than 34th receiver, and be higher than 240th overall, and be even maybe a 5-star performer. So it's a good get, and it adds to a good receivers class that'll be coming in, hopefully, if it all stays put, in either December or February.
And lastly, Jeff, before we wrap up, add another chapter to this bizarre staring contest that's going on in the NBA between Kyrie Irving and the Brooklyn Nets. Kyrie finally spoke yesterday. He held a virtual press conference as he's not allowed to be in the facility with his teammates. And he said a lot, but basically said, I'm standing firm. Yeah, paraphrasing.
I saw his comments, and that's his prerogative.
Yeah, I mean, he said
he would say, and he said what I think a lot of people feel. Like I would fall into this category. I don't advocate either way. If you want me to advocate to tell people they have to get a vaccine, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it. I'm also not going to. I don't think that no one should. I think you should. My overall thought is you should get vaccinated. But a bigger overall thought is, although it ain't none of my concern. And I so to that end, I get where some of, not just these athletes, but where a lot of people are coming from, and they have a variety of reasons of whether or not they want to get vaccinated. And so, for a guy, I do not agree with Kyrie on a lot of things, including the flat earth. But I do think you can choose to be unvaccinated and yet not be in that camp per se. And I think that Kyrie was at least trying to say that yesterday. He went on Instagram Live, did say, I'm not retiring, quote, I chose to be unvaccinated, and that is my choice, and I would ask you to respect that. You think I really want to give up on my dream to go after a championship? You think I really just want to give up my job? You think I really just want to sit at home and not go after the things with my teammates that I've been able to grow and learn with?
But he doesn't sound like a guy who's
going to get it
anywhere close to changing.
No, I think he's
his stance.
I think he's going to, and he also said, I'm not advocating for either side in this. This is just my personal choice. And as we see here, and with some other mandates, that personal choice can cost you your job. At least it can for now. Now, look, at some point, we cannot remain in pandemic protocol for 10 years. So at some point, I would think that the protocols in the NBA will be relaxed. So I'm sure Kyrie's hoping, well, gosh, maybe by January or February, you won't have to be vaccinated to play in this state. You won't have to be vaccinated to be a part of this or otherwise. So it's definitely a headache for the Nets. I mean, the Nets have pieced together this triumvirate, these 3 players that they think can bring them a title. Last year they had 2 for different reasons, and it wasn't enough. The Bucks beat them. If they have, Harden was slowed, Kyrie wasn't playing, it was just the Kevin Durant show, and he alone was almost enough. The Nets championship hopes, you could argue, rely on all 3 of those guys being able to play, because when they had 2 of them, it wasn't enough. There's some good young teams coming in the NBA. The Bucks aren't going anywhere. They still got a good young, solid nucleus. The Hawks are a young up-and-coming team. You can never count out, the Sixers with Embiid as their centerpiece. It's not going to be, and we haven't gotten to the West. So it's not the Nets have constructed a quote-unquote super team, but they, as to this point, there's been 1 or 2 of those capes always on the shelf. They need him. But I think what Kyrie was trying to say yesterday was 2 things. I'm not about retiring. This is going to run me out of the game. I wish I was playing. And I'm not advocating anti-vax or vax. I'm just executing my personal choice, which unfortunately this case is affecting other people.
Yeah, and he had it seemed like he was on the verge of a big extension with Brooklyn that they have now pulled off the table, according to a report from Shams over at The Athletic. He's under contract through next season, and there was a $187 million 4-year extension seemingly on the table, but according to Shams, quote, will not be offered now.
Well, and then there's also this, the Nets no longer have his back. I mean, that's fact. When you said, hey, look, you're allowed to play half the time according to NBA rules, but we say no. get vaccinated or stay home. I mean, that's what the Nets told him. We don't need
Right. You're either all in or you're not in.
Yeah, you're in or you're not. And with that can be simpler when it comes to some contractual proposal. And many of you and us out there, it's no big deal to go get a vaccine. That's not the same for everyone. For other people, it is a big deal for whatever those reasons are. And again, I think I think Kyrie did what he did yesterday because the Nets kind of insinuated he's not all in. I mean, that's kind of what their insinuation was. And Kyrie yesterday tried to say, I don't want to retire. I'm not trying to stop playing basketball. I got a lot to accomplish. I am not saying to anyone, do not vaccinate. I'm not saying to anyone, do vaccinate. I'm just doing what I feel is best for me.
Well, like we talked about
and in America, that doesn't, if it's the wrong side, that doesn't matter.
If this wasn't Kyrie Irving and the long history of, puzzling, bizarre statements and behavior, it probably wouldn't be so.
Well, true. Well, most people
polarizing.
Most people succumb. Most people, even if they're against their own personal objections, if they're told, yeah, you're fired if you don't, then they change their mind. Look,
or your presumption would be that eventually they would, but Kyrie's such a...
Now, he won't.
He won't.
I think he'll wait on the NBA cannot, society cannot keep these restrictions up for 5 years, or it's just going to be,
And Kyrie's not he's not going to relent.
Yeah, he's not going to go Andrew Wiggins and say, oh, well, I don't want to, but here you go. That's the 10-minute drill.
You're welcome, America.
Right now, we have a lunch, entrees for 2 at Sonny's Barbecue.
You're welcome.
It's what we do. That's yummy. That sounds good to me. I'd like some Sonny's right now.
How about we go? Caller number 0, winner, Dan, or Beef and Jeff. We're going to eat.
Thank you.
Sorry, Googans. Tough break.
It's funny because we're so prominent in driving the deliciousness of Sonny's here in the morning, yet when Sonny's comes to the homestead here, they all eat it. It's always in the afternoon. Has Sonny's not got the word that I will eat barbecue chicken at 7:15?
They may not know.
Do they not know?
I'm going to have to let Shannon
Who's got
know.
the Sonny's account? It's time for me to go harass and harangue the sales associates around here who feed the people who aren't driving the commerce.
Time to start feeding the pig.
All right, we'll be back with more. It's Custom Tree Surgeons Thursday. Doc Kevin Murphy is next.